going to be a short follow-up to the earlier video on referencing I did. I'll put a link to that in the description below. And the plan, very simply, is to talk through an example of referencing for an academic text, looking at where the references go and what form they take. As I said in the earlier video, the key issues to understand are what the purposes of referencing are. But the practical details of how you go about including references in the text is also important, of course, and hopefully this will provide a bit of guidance about that. So here we have a short text about Global English, which has had all the references taken out. I'm going to go through it and talk through the sort of references that are appropriate for this piece of writing. Before that, though, I'll start by reading the passage through. Beliefs about language are central to the politics of language, and beliefs about a particular language, e.g. English, are rarely, if ever, about that language alone. Instead, they're about the associations that are made in society between the language and a variety of other social issues and practices. One of the ways in which these associations are created is through the use of metaphors. Harpum argues that, when it comes to language, metaphors are truly indispensable. Any description that attributes to language a particular character, nature or function will necessarily have the status of a metaphor. What he means by this is that when we describe either language in general or a particular language, e.g. English, Spanish, Japanese, we very often do so in a metaphorical way. And the reason for this is that language is such an all-pervasive and complex aspect of human life that it becomes very difficult to explain its nature and use without likening it to other things. But in likening it to other phenomena in the world, we also create a particular perspective from which to view and evaluate its existence. Take, for example, the term linguicide, which is a neologism modelled on concepts such as homicide, fratricide and regicide, and is used in some parts of the academic literature to refer to the way that languages get killed off. It's thus often linked to the idea of a killer language. In this characterization, English is responsible not only for creating a bland global monoculture, what people have variously described as the McDonaldization, Disneyfication, or even Coca-Colanization of the world, but it's also responsible for actually killing, or perhaps even massacring, other languages, and, by extension, other cultures. Another metaphor for the role English plays in the world can be found in the research of Niño Murcia, who has looked at attitudes to learning English in Peru. She writes that English is seen as a requirement imposed by globalization and a global market, in that it often acts as a prerequisite for finding stable work and decent wages, especially for those whom emigration to an English-speaking country is often seen as the only solution to severe economic deprivation. As one of the people she interviewed for her study comments, El inglés es como el dólar. English is like the dollar, a metaphor which points to the way that English acts as a currency for social and geographical mobility in today's world. So that's the passage. Now let's go through and see what type of references we should be adding. In the first paragraph, I've referred to the idea that the associations people make with a language are often to do with other things beyond the language itself. This is a summary of an idea that was discussed by Woolard. So the first reference we want is to the work in which that was discussed. In this case, I just put the surname of the author and the date of publication. In the second paragraph, I quote directly from Harpum. The reason I quote directly from him is that the way he expresses these ideas is something I want to replicate, and as such a direct quotation is better than paraphrasing. Because it's a direct quotation, I need to add not only a reference to the work itself, but also the page number on which the quote can be found. In this case, the quotation runs over 2 pages, so I put pages 34 to 5. I also don't need to write his name as part of the in-text citation, as that's already contained at the beginning of the sentence itself. In the third paragraph, the word linguicide has been coined and is particularly associated with a specific author, so for that reason I'll also add a citation here. In the second sentence of this paragraph, I assert that this idea is often linked to the idea of a killer language. In other words, Other people often link it to this idea, and as such, here again I need to put a citation. Finally, in this paragraph, I've referred to 3 different pieces of terminology which certain scholars have used when talking about globalization and English, so I want to put a citation to each of them. In these 3 cases, I've used square brackets rather than round brackets, simply because the phrase in which the citations come is itself already in brackets. Finally, in the 4th paragraph, I refer to the work of Nino Murcia and include a direct quotation from her. As such, I need to put a reference to this particular work of hers, which I can do by adding its date after her name, and then I want to add the page number of the direct quote. So those are all the in-text citations for this passage, and then in the references list at the end, I need to include each of them again in full. In this case, the full reference should include the name of the author, the date of the publication, the title of the work, the place of publication, and the publisher. When it's a journal article, as in the case of the Nino Murcia, it's the name of the author, date of publication, name of the article, name of the journal, edition and number of the journal, plus its page range. And likewise, for a chapter in an edited book, as for example with the Woolard, again you've got name of the author, publication date, title of the chapter, and then the details of the book in which the chapter appears, including the editors of the book, the full title of the book, and place of publication and publisher. So that's a basic overview of what referencing looks like in an academic essay. As I said in the earlier video, the precise style you use will depend on what the guidance notes for your assignment recommend. So really it's just a matter of adapting these basic principles to that style, all the while remembering what it is you're trying to achieve with the referencing.